This is the S1S Podcast, Episode 2.
The Stage 1 Startup Podcast is launching in T-minus 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1, 0. Prepare for liftoff.
Welcome to the Stage 1 Startup Podcast for startups and aspiring entrepreneurs to find out what it takes to launch any business idea from stage 1 to success. Now, for your hosts, live from the UK, Nichols and Morley.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Stage 1 Startup Podcast. This is episode 2. We have an amazing guest for you today. Brad, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good today, Greg. It's a Saturday, the sun is shining, and I'm feeling alive.
Good, I'm glad. Things are going to be epic this morning. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, if Brad, did you want to do a quick intro for our listeners so that they know what to expect from our guest today?
So today on episode 2, we have a through and through entrepreneur, Mr. Arthur Luke of arthurluke.co.uk. Arthur is a branding expert, blogger and serial entrepreneur with over 35 years experience in helping some of the world's biggest brands as well as smallest startups find success. Some of the companies that Arthur has been lucky enough to work with are the likes of BBC, Coca-Cola, Toyota, BT, Penguin Books, you name it. There is plenty more. Arthur has been many things in a previous life, such as a bus conductor, a shipyard boilermaker, a welder, all these other things that just wasn't filling the gaps and creating that burning desire to have more. So by the age of 10, Arthur actually started to run his own business. This is where he realised he was an entrepreneur at heart. So as well as Arthur creating his own publishing company, he has run his own design company, he has been creative director of the world's biggest branding agency, he's been a space tourism expert, he's also a blues musician in his spare time, but Arthur is a lifelong entrepreneur. If it's about branding and starting up your own business from scratch, especially online, then Arthur is the perfect man for the job. Now we're going to dive into the show and we're going to hear from the man himself. Arthur Luke, can you tell us a bit more about yourself and your journey along the way? So Arthur, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us on the show today. Could you just tell our listeners a bit more about your background, maybe starting with your previous life before you become an entrepreneur?
Well, that's tricky because I suppose I became an entrepreneur when I was still a child, although I didn't realise I was an entrepreneur at the time. I used to live in Australia and I started a little golf balling business. But I suppose it's been in the blood forever. My dad was not an entrepreneur. He was on a constant search through life to try and find himself, and he always went from one job to the next. So I think that sort of spirit was embedded in me. But yeah, I mean, I've tried loads of things. I mean, you've mentioned a couple of them. I've been a bus conductor, worked in the shipyards, been a welder, I've been a civil servant. I had my own publishing company, I had my own design company, software company. You name it, and I've probably done it, I should think. So yeah, I don't know what else after that. I went on to become. I started in branding in 1972. I first worked for Terence Conran. I came out of art school. Worked for most design companies in London, or quite a few of them anyway. Been a blues musician. Yeah.
So Arthur, you mentioned that you kind of went into branding. Is that something that you always had a passion for, or was it kind of one of them things that you just end up in?
I didn't realise I had a passion for it. I mean, I do. When I was at school, teachers said I was crap at art and I really wanted to do art, but they said I wasn't any good at it. And the school agreed. When I left school at 16, they suggested I just went into the shipyard. But later on, I had this passion for art, so I went to night schools while I was in the shipyards. And so I sort of found my own way into branding. But yeah, I'm passionate about branding, always have been. I get really excited talking about it. And even now at the age of 60, I'm just as passionate as I was when I was 20.
Well, that's always good. I mean, passion's one of the biggest drives that makes people successful, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. I mean, if you're not passionate, the chances are you're going to, it'll become a chore, it'll become something you dread doing, and you'll just give up on it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I know that's great. So would you say that branding's your main focal point at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, although I've sort of had lots of businesses through my life, branding's been the main thread that's run through everything. As a branding expert, it's made those businesses a lot easier for me because a lot of the skills and the knowledge that are needed to start up a business and take a business forward are encompassed, are within branding anyway. So that made life a lot easier for me.
Yeah, of course. That's great. And I suppose I know you've mentioned when we previously spoke that a lot of ideas need a big audience, and people they always say sort of like a key business is to find a solution to a problem. So, would you say that was something you sort of found your main as you was going through your journey as an entrepreneur? Would you mean you started to heavily focus on really finding an audience as such?
Definitely. I mean, when I first started, I've always come up with tons of ideas. I've got notebooks full of them. And in the early days, when I used to try and start businesses, I was led by just my sheer enthusiasm, and I let enthusiasm lead the way. And that's a really bad idea. And the later in life, I realized that you've got to build an audience first, and if you're going to start a business, and you've got to be able to make some money at it. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. It's just a hobby then.
Yeah, of course. Cool. No, that's great.
Okay. Should we go into the questions?
Yeah. I think what we're going to do, we're going to dive straight into the part one of the questions.
Mm-hmm. I can start that.
Yeah, Greg's going to start that. And then we're going to jump into a quick rocket round where we ask 5 quick questions. And then we can come back to the part 2 of the schedule. Sound good?
Yep, sounds perfect, mate.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. So now that everybody has had a chance to listen to what Arthur is all about, I hope you guys have had a great feel for who Arthur is and what you can kind of expect. We're now going to dive into the essential startup questions. So Arthur, our first question to you is, can you take us back to the moment you pinpointed your idea as your thing and why you decided to run with it?
As I said, back in the early days, on some of my first ideas, I didn't even know I was trying to start a business. It was just something I really liked doing, and I did anything that got me excited, really. But in hindsight, that's not the best way to start your business, because you need to think about the audience, and you need to solve a problem. If you can't solve a problem, then the idea is useless. And it has to make a profit, as I said a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah, of course. So, what would you say your biggest motivation was that was pushing you with this idea?
Well, with most of the ideas I've had, the biggest driving force is simply just I wanted to do what I wanted to do in life. I'm not very good at taking orders. I've been looking back at my full-time jobs in the early years. I got fired quite a few times. I was very good at upsetting the boss, and I'm not very good at taking orders from people I don't really respect. So I've always wanted to do my own thing, really. The price for that has been quite high at times, but it's the only way I live my life.
Yeah, that sounds, to be fair, I think that sounds like this sort of story that the majority of entrepreneurs have. They don't seem to be very good at taking orders from the man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay. So, going on to the whole motivation and drive to it. I mean, what was your circle of influence like around the times of all of your struggles? I mean, did they play an important role within your success? And would you suggest to people to get themselves around the types of entrepreneurs that they are aspiring to be like?
Yeah. No, to be honest, looking back on it, I was never really influenced. People around me, friends and work colleagues in the different jobs I had, were pretty sort of, I don't know, don't want to upset them, but they didn't really have a lot of drive. They were quite happy doing what they did, or they were more interested going down the pub or going to the football match, and they were just what they did. So there weren't any real role models. But having said that, I think you do need role models. Role models are good. You can have role models from a distance. They don't have to be people that you communicate, you have anything to do with in your everyday life. But all I can think of is my own father, although he didn't realize he was a role model, and I didn't really have talked to him a great deal. But just looking back on it, just his sheer drive through life. He left school when he was 14, and his first job, I don't know how he managed to do it, but he got his first job as a truck driver, driving goods down to London. And he was only 15. He was underage. I don't know how he managed to get. My grandma said that they had to put a big cushion under his driving seat so you could see over the steering wheel. So it's just that sort of approach to life that I think drives me forward.
Yeah, no, I love that, Arthur, and I think This is a big question for us, because we get from a lot of people that, the support from the ones that are closest to you, your family, your close friends, sometimes isn't quite there because they don't really get the entrepreneurial mindset. And I know that I can also, speak for that I love my family to bits. I love my friends, that they all mean well, but sometimes they don't quite get that you're on one journey, you're on one train to where you want to be, and you're not getting off as much as they want to pull you off and tell you that your job's good. You know where you're going, and you just need to go there.
My parents have never understood what I've done for a living. My mum still is. If you ask my mum now, she's got no idea what I do. They just can't relate to it. Yeah. And I find it's funny because people just think they don't know what I do. They think I just sit in my studio and fiddle around and, draw things. They just really don't understand. And I think when you come up with ideas for a business, I mean, I've heard of a lot of entrepreneurs who say, yes, talk to your family and friends, get their support, get them behind you. But I actually think the opposite. I think that works against you. Whenever I've told family and friends, they have a strong emotional connection with you. They don't want to upset you. They don't want you to take risks. They don't want you to waste money. They don't want you to ruin your life. They don't, so they don't. On one hand, they don't want you to do anything different, and on the other hand, they want to, they want to support you as well, so that you actually don't get anything from them. I mean, I've got a really good friend who's an economist. Most of my working life, and I used to phone him up whenever I had a new idea, because I was desperate to tell anybody. So I used to ring him up, and after I put the phone down, I used to come away from it depressed, because he would say things like, "Oh yeah, I read something last week about who's doing that," or "That's never going to make any money," or full of negatives all the time. Whether he was subconsciously trying to me from taking unnecessary risks, or whether subconsciously he was just jealous that he couldn't get his arse off the ground to do it himself, who knows? But I found in the end it was best to just go with my gut feeling.
Yeah.
And I think it is definitely all about the gut feeling. And I think for any S1S listeners that are hearing Arthur right now, there you go. There's your answer. That people, Arthur has been through this. He's had the people there that have tried to pull him away from it. Whether it's jealousy or not, that's always going to be a theory. That's sometimes the way I see it, as though, like you just said, some people they can't be bothered to get off their arse and do it themselves, and they don't want to see you succeed ahead of them. But what you S1S listeners need to know is that you can push through it and still be successful without the support there. Sometimes you just got to go with your gut.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, do you think it's an essential to a startup to invest in a mentor? Would you say? As you said, you kind of didn't have a role model as such. So do you think it is an essential for a startup to invest in some kind of mentor?
Yeah, I do actually, because I think I've wasted so much time looking back on it over the years. I've made so many bad decisions just because I didn't know any different. And as I said, I let enthusiasm lead the way, and not base things on facts. So if I could start again, I would dearly love to have a mentor. But there are mentors and there are mentors. You really want somebody who's been through it, somebody who's had all the ups and downs themselves.
Yeah, I mean, do you have any kind of recommendations for our listeners to maybe go out and find a mentor? Is there anywhere that you can recommend for our listeners to find someone?
It's difficult, really, isn't it? It's you read it, you follow, you go online and you see these sort of big US American gurus, and it's you look at them and actually you can't relate to them, because we're here in the UK, and those people, they've got millions of followers. It sound like as if they got success overnight. I think you need to be much closer to home. You have to find somebody who's run businesses all their life. In fact, they don't even have to run businesses all their life. They just have to have be a wise mentor.
And I suppose in part some experience. I suppose this relates actually to the last episode that we just recorded with Robin Waite, who was he's an author and many other things. But he also said, when we asked him this question, this is why we really like to work on this question, because there is a lot of people that ask, where do you find a mentor? and I think one of his answers did actually relate to yours, and it was just that, you know, find someone. They don't have to be a superstar. They could just be someone that's slightly, maybe slightly older than you and has a bit more experience, and that can help you through it.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm tempted to say when it comes to branding, you need to talk to me, but
definitely. I mean, you've got the experience there for sure. So, Arthur, I just want to adapt on how much time would you say you invested into building your idea in the startup stages?
a lot of time, really. I mean, that's where it all comes together. If you put the right plan in place at the very beginning, you've got a much better chance of it succeeding. I talked to over the last couple of weeks. I've been doing lots of Skype calls with people who've either just started a business or they've been running a business for 2 or 3 years. There've been all sorts of people from all over the world, but they all have the same sorts of problems. What they've done is they've started their business. Maybe it's because it was a hobby, or decided, I could make some money at this, and they've gone along and they haven't actually ever had a plan of action. So, you know, it's developed. Sometimes it's been successful, sometimes it hasn't. But then an inevitable wall where their audience isn't growing. They're not getting as many customers as they thought they would. And it's because they never really sat down at the very beginning, worked out what it is they wanted to do, you know, what are they really good at, who the real customer is, not who they think the customer might be, who the real customer is, and where's the overlap between, you know, what I do that I'm really good at, that I'm passionate about, that I want to build my business around, and that end audience. So they start their business worrying that, well, I've got everybody, I've got to do a bit of this and a bit of that, and I've got to, you know, so the potential customers get these confused messages. They're not clear what it is you want to sell to them, do for them. You know, you need to have one clear message. So I think you need to sit down at the very beginning and get that right. Who your audience is, what age they are, where they come from, what they do, how much where the money is. And tie that in with what you wanted, what your passion is.
That's brilliant.
I think, yeah, definitely relating to that, Arthur, obviously what you're saying there, this is where I want to sort of link in the next question, because like yourself, you've obviously been an entrepreneur since you was at a young age, so I suppose time was on your side, and you, like you said, you used it to your full advantage. You was working some extreme hours. So for anyone out there that's maybe looking to start a business, doesn't have to be in your field, but maybe just starting a business generally, would you recommend that they were to get some kind of job on the side that could maybe help fund the idea, or sort of work around their job until they can replace the income, or would you just say go all out?
No, I'd say, you know, starting a business is hard enough as it is. You know, don't make it harder by having to worry about how you're going to pay your mortgage or your rent on your flat or whatever it is. I think if you can, my early businesses were all done while I had other jobs. You know, when I was a creative director in a big agency, I used to run other businesses on the side. And as I mentioned to you last time we talked, I even had other personalities on the side. You know, at one point in my career, I had 3 different personalities. You know, I was me as a creative director. I had another job as an illustrator, as agent. I think, you know, start businesses when you've got another job. You know, do it in the evening. When you've got tons of energy. You know, I used to work 7 days a week all the time. I'd meet my girlfriend at the time who I lived with for 3 years. I only used to meet her in restaurants in the evening. You know, I'd see her 3 nights a week, even though we lived in the same house. Because when I got home, she'd gone to sleep. And when I left in the morning, she hadn't woken up yet. So we used to meet in Islington in restaurants in the evening. It was crazy. But so I'm saying that start while you've got, you know, minimize the risks and the pain by starting a business while you've got another job, while you've got a full-time job. So having said that, though, another thing you sort of briefly mentioned on is about sort of when you're young and you've got all that energy. I mean, I started my most recent business last October at the age of 59. So, I mean, at age, you know, you can start a business at any age. Obviously, the challenges are different, but, you know, you start at any age. Any age is a good time to start a business.
Okay, so you kind of went into, in the last question, you went into really good detail about, you know, sort of looking to or getting a job to be able to fund for the business. I just want to ask, like, how were you funding your businesses in the starting stages? You know, did you kind of look for investment? Did you have jobs? Did you bootstrap? What kind of ideas did you come up with to be able to fund your ideas?
Well, I've done both really, but I mean, I'm a lifelong bootstrapper. I think that, you know, you minimize the risks by using what you've got at the time. You know, the skills you've got at hand, the money you've got at hand. Don't spend more than you can afford. I mean, it's, you know, I'm not a gambler, and I don't think entrepreneurs are gamblers. We take risks, but we take a safe risk.
Calculated risk.
Calculated risk.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always bootstrap everything. I mean, when I started my first publishing company, I did everything myself. I started with 4 titles. I took a year off. It required so much time. I took a year off work. I researched these 4 new titles. I knew I was starting a publishing company. I wasn't an author, so I tracked down a specialist in each of those subjects, got them to read my draft, add anything they wanted, and then the deal was that they could put their name to the book, and they could have their biography in the front, and it would be their name on the book, but they wouldn't get paid. So that was the deal. They really got a nice book, and I got their expertise and their knowledge and the kudos of having their name on the covers. And then I went out around the country for 4 months and sold the books myself.
That's awesome. I mean, this is something that we really like to focus on as well, because there are a lot of bootstrappers out there, you know, people that haven't got much money to fund things. Like us, yeah. I mean, this is exactly how we started. We're still in the bootstrapping stages. We heavily agree with doing, you know, whatever you can yourself as well to sort of save the costs as well. But obviously, then some might say your time can get taken up. But no, that's brilliant to hear. You know, that you've bootstrapped your way there. I know you've got some great stories of things that you've done, which we'll go into a bit more detail after the questions to get our listeners a chance to know about those.
So Arthur, I mean, you spoke about bootstrapping and how you've always kind of done it. How long was it until you started to see results and progress within your business, or businesses, should I say?
I would say at least a year every time. I mean, you know, time flies. You mustn't underestimate the time it takes and the effort it takes to get something off the ground, which leads me to say that these days, I mean, it's a lot easier to start up a business. When I started the publishing company, you know, now everything's online. You know, you're so lucky. You've got all that knowledge online. You can Google everything. You know, you can have podcasts. You can put up a website for a couple of quid. It really is so much more than you think it can, with a lot less than you think you need.
There's kind of like no excuses nowadays to not be able to implement the things that are there on the internet, really, isn't there?
Yeah. But you just got to be patient. Things don't happen overnight. But what I would say is that I think you need to, if you're starting off with it, you've just got a gem of idea now, scribble on a sheet of paper. I think what you do first is you start building an audience before you build a product. That might sound a bit weird, but while you're thinking about your product, start writing. It's on Instagram, it's on Facebook, wherever it is online. Build an audience around the subject of business you're about to build. When you come to launch it in 6 months' time, 8 months' time, you've got a soft audience already there waiting.
Yeah, definitely. No, I totally agree with that, Arthur. And just before we're going to take this opportunity to go into the rocket realm, but just before we do, I've just got one more question, and that is just about the branding in itself. Obviously, you know your main focus point in your business is about branding. You teach to people why branding is so important. You know, there's 2 types of advice that we've been given previously when looking to start a business. One was just get up and running. Don't worry about all the main branding side of things. Just get the thing launched and start working on progress over time. One thing I heard someone say was that, you know, your first draft of anything is shit, and you've got to expect that. But then there's the other side where we've heard, obviously, people say, you know, your branding can mean a lot. It makes you look more professional, obviously, and like coming from yourself. We obviously really want to focus on the branding side of this business because, like I just said, we do think that it makes things look a lot more professional, builds a bit more trust. So what would be your advice to that? Do you think that branding is really important for a startup, or something you should just focus on over time?
Branding is important, but branding is the whole experience. You know, branding is not the logo. the logo, you can start with a temporary logo, and you can change that, and the name is just the name's part of the brand, the logo's part of the brand, the service is part of the brand, everything, the whole experience is the brand. So you need to start. I think I agree with a bit of both. You need to start with your MVP, your minimum viable product. So you start with the least you can in order to test it out to an audience.
And I suppose leave some room for improvement. I guess you don't want to do too much at once, do you?
Well, it's no good spending a load of money and a load of time sorting out, getting the logo perfect, getting the name just right, getting the look and feel perfect, and then realizing, that actually it was a crap idea anyway, and there isn't any money in it, and there's no customers there. You need to get it's the product you're selling, so you get that together. Give yourself some temporary logo if you haven't had time, and get it to launch. You've got to get it to launch first. Then then the brand develops, because, as I said, the brand is an all-encompassing experience that the customer has with you and your product, and that builds and changes over time. I mean, I know loads of branding experts who will say, your brand identity should never change. I disagree. I think brands change over time. If you look at Shell, the petroleum company, their logo's changed about 40 times in 40 years. It might not look it, but they change it all the time. In Google, they change their logo all the bloody time. They have variations on it. I think your brand is a living, breathing experience that the customer has with you.
Brilliant. I think that's where a lot of people do go wrong, because they think when they hear brand and they hear branding, they purely just think of the outside view of a business. But like you just said, it is about the experience as well, which is what people need to know when starting a business, and really knowing what their business means and what it would serve people, I guess.
Brilliant. Arthur, thank you so much for answering those questions. There's some huge value bombs within those questions that you just answered. We're going to go into the 5-question rocket round now, so we're really going to need you to think on your feet as we're going to go through 5 quick questions. Are you ready, Arthur?
Well, I will think on my feet because I've forgotten what they were, so yeah.
Okay, so first question from me, is it book or audio for you?
Book. I mean, there's several. There's one I read by Seth Godin, which is all about building a following and knowing who the following is. That's a brilliant book. Mm. Yeah, I mean, he's written a few books. But that one particularly, I think I've read all of the books, but that one was a really good one I'm sure it was called Tribe. And another one was called Made to Stick, by an American guy called Chip Heath, and that's about the art of the message and why some ideas survive and others don't, and it's all about the message. That's in the book.
Brilliant.
Perfect. Okay, so next question. Is there a particular app that you are currently using that assists you with your entrepreneurial journey?
No. Not really. I use so many of them. I can't think of any one that I use all the time.
Okay.
That's fine. That's cool. Okay, so can you give the best piece of advice to an aspiring entrepreneur within your field right now?
I would say that I've got 3 really. One is something I said a bit earlier: build your audience before you build your product. And then as you're going through your business, as you're living your business, I think don't sell but inspire. What makes your business different to everybody else's, so it's not just a commodity, it's the story, and the passion. So you have to inspire people. So you don't sell them, don't hard sell people ever. Mm-hmm. And I think my final one is, and if your business is not a brand, it's just a commodity. And if your business is a commodity, you can only compete on price. And if your price, you'll go out of business because your price is going down. The only way you can beat your competitors is by having a lower price, and that's no way to run a business. So brand is critical.
Love that. Okay, so if you could go back to the age of 21, 22, what would you say to yourself then? Because for you, this is an interesting one. Other people, this is sort of when they've started businesses. Some people, they haven't yet started businesses and they're still going through the sort of employee line of things. But you would have been hard at work for a while by that point. So what would you have said to yourself now if you was 22 again? Would you go in the same direction?
I would have said, don't be limited by the limitations of your friends and family. I mean, you touched on that earlier, and I think that's so important. They can kill your dreams before you even start. So, follow your dream and don't listen to too many people. Yes, take advice. Listen to them, but you make the decisions. And I think don't panic. Don't panic. Take it one step at a time.
Stop panicking, people. Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so
don't overthink.
Brilliant. Okay, so who at the moment is your favourite entrepreneur idol? I mean, do you have one? Obviously, other than yourself, Arthur.
I try to think about that, and I can't really. I mean, I know all people, like the Richard Bransons of the world, and you look at them, and you think they're amazing, but no, I can't really. I don't have an entrepreneurial idol at all.
I think a lot of people actually don't, to be fair. I mean, we asked ourselves this in the introductory episode, who your idol is. And I mean, I've got a few. Greg also had a few. I think sometimes people don't have a particular person that they idolise. Some people don't have any, like yourself. But, it's just, again, that's probably in part some advice to somebody. You don't have to completely focus your things on following somebody, and especially don't compare yourself to them. Sometimes you can do it alone.
I think I've just thought of somebody. I think if anybody, I think it might be J.K. Rowling. Okay. The author of the Harry Potter books. Because when you look back at her story, I mean, that's pretty inspirational.
Yeah, it is. I mean, she wrote that, she started out with nothing. I think she was a single parent. Is that correct?
She was. She got turned down from just about every publisher in the country. Her parents weren't behind her. She really had, she just had a self-belief, really.
I think I heard through the grapevine that she sent her book off to publishers about 220 odd times or something and got rejected until she got about right, wasn't it?
I mean, how many people would do that? You'd have given up long ago, wouldn't you?
100%. I mean, it sort of relates actually to the story I see the other day on the Angry Birds creators. Apparently, they made something like 51 games. They was on the verge of being completely broke, and they just sort of said to themselves, "Look, let's make one more app." Brainstormed about 10 ideas, and that one appeared to be the Angry Birds game. Yeah. And now, it's got film out. It's got billions of downloads.
I've been there myself. I mean, I've had started businesses. I can pinpoint points in my life where I've gone from earning lots of money to then having no money and the bank balance dwindling down to like a couple of grand left in the bank from, a couple of $100,000 in the bank, and been sitting there in the garden trying to work out what the hell I'm going to do next. And just coming up with an idea. I mean, I lost all my branding clients at one point, and I was sitting there and I thought, I'll try the stock market. I didn't know anything about the stock market, so I bought a couple of books, sat there in the garden, started reading every book I could think of about the stock markets. Did some research on the FTSE. I worked out all about portfolios, but while I was doing that, I realized that I thought, actually some of these companies have got real branding problems. They're massive companies. So I wrote a letter to the chairman of 10 companies, and I just sent him a letter, just saying, I worked out a problem that you have, and I know I can solve it. And I was amazed. I got 3 interviews and with the chairman of these big multinational companies. I met him individually in London, went in there, actually won one of the 3 jobs. Which turned out to be like a £450,000 job.
Jesus.
And there was me, day before, sitting in the garden with about £2,000 left in the bank.
That's crazy. I mean, that your journey. I really want to go into your journey and some of the things that you've done, Arthur, because they're very inspiring, and it will also teach a lot of people about the whole, boosting your confidence and just taking the leap sometimes, and clearly, like you just said, how your position in life can change within 24 hours just from doing one particular thing.
Yeah. I mean, I've never, most people would think, oh well, I'll just go and get myself another job. I've never thought like that. The last thing on earth I would ever do is go back and get another full-time job. Well, I'm unemployable now anyway. No one would have me. So the driving force has always been, I'm doing it on my own. If I don't sort it out, no one else is going to sort it out for me.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think, as Greg was saying earlier, there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that they are unemployable, and like you said, sometimes it's your pathway is in part built for you as to take it your own way sometimes.
Yeah, it is. It's just the way your DNA is. You can't do it any other way. It can be very painful at times, but it's the only way you can live. That's just the way you are.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so brilliant. Thank you for answering the 5-question rocket round. I do have one other question for you, if that's okay, Arthur.
Yeah, fire away.
Brilliant. Okay, so obviously branding is your main focal point at the minute. There are a lot of kind of social media platforms out there at the moment that really help with that kind of thing. What would you recommend at the minute? What is your favourite social media platform for boosting your sales?
Mine is Instagram. I mean, I played around with Facebook. I played around with Twitter. I've had various businesses little startups over the last sort of 6 years in particular, where it's been really relevant to try and identify which social media channel was best for which startup. And for the first one, it was Twitter, but I found Facebook to be a real depressing struggle. I find Facebook, you can't do anything on Facebook unless you pay for lots of money on ads. I've even done the odd course by sort of Facebook experts who tell you what to do, but they tell you you end up spending 50 quid a day. That's no way to start a business, and it's just demoralizing. I mean, then I started Instagram just in February there, and the results were amazing. I was just you have to pick the channel that suits the way you work, and I'm a very visual person, so Instagram started to work perfectly for me. It allowed me to try and build a feed and build the brand around a simple one-page feed on Instagram. It's brilliant. I love Instagram.
Brilliant. Okay, so I mean, talking numbers, what kind of success have you had with Instagram?
Well, when I was trying to do the same thing on Facebook as I tried to do on Instagram, and when I was on Facebook, I put a little ebook together. I did some ads. I think I had 200 quid, and I got one sign up for my ebook. And I thought, I'm not wasting any more money. And I started on Instagram at the end of February with 8 followers that I'd had just hanging around for it forever. And at the end of March, I just started building up my feed, just posts by me and no one else, with my little brand on there, and just tried to sort of tell people about branding so they knew who I was. End of March, I put up a little ebook called No Brand, No Business. And, within 8 weeks, over 200 subscribers had downloaded the ebook. You compare that to the money I'd wasted on Facebook. Amazing. I'd only been on Facebook by a month when I got some consultancy work out of it. Somebody'd seen one of the posts, contacted me, and I needed consultancy. So I was absolutely knocked off my feet. I couldn't believe that that would happen in such a short time on Instagram. So I'm in love with it. Instagram, I think it's great.
I agree. I think Instagram is a big tool that we're also using at the moment. We've managed to, like yourself, that's how we met, obviously, in the private group there. But we've managed to obviously build our following up, and it's helped us massively in other areas. And like you say, the opportunities just come open. And I think with the whole branding side of things, and you obviously create a lot of very, very eye-catching images that can push what the sort of direction you're going in. So I think what you're saying there, Instagram would be a perfect tool for someone that was looking to go into your sort of field to use.
And also on Facebook, you can't really, it's difficult to communicate with people who like your page. There's a name and that's it. On Instagram, it really does allow you to communicate with people who are following you. You know who they are. You can see what they're interested in, and you can really target them a lot better, I think. Facebook has very sophisticated ad targeting mechanisms in place. But I just prefer Instagram. Unfortunately, Instagram is also owned by Facebook, isn't it? So who knows what the future holds?
Exactly.
I think it's going to be very interesting to find out what Instagram are going to start implementing into their systems, because I know they've just started. I think in the next couple of weeks they're releasing a analytics tool for Instagram actually on the actual Instagram app. So I think that's going to be interesting for things. And
they're doing a lot of they're sort of actually allowing you to create a business profile now, aren't they? Rather than setting up just a business profile through a personal profile.
Well, you can see where it's going, isn't it? If you're not careful, you can see it. They're going to, head you towards the Facebook thing, and you'll never be able to get anybody. You'll never get in front of anybody unless you pay money. Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Yeah, hopefully not. So, quickly, actually, Arthur, you mentioned about this ebook, the No Brand, No Business, that's obviously been very successful on Instagram. Could you just tell us where people can find this ebook if they were to be interested in it?
Yes. It pops up on my Instagram feed probably every couple of weeks. It's not up there at the moment because I've been talking about the class that I'm trying to put together for refocusing your brand. But the ebook will appear back on the feed in another week or so. You can't get it on the website. It's just something I keep putting up and then taking down. Just a little teaser, really.
Sure. Well, I suppose we can put a link in the show notes, can't we, to where they can find it.
Yeah.
So just before we're going to look to wrap up in a second, Arthur. Before we do you want to just tell us if somebody was looking to start out in your targeted niche, what should they be doing in the early stages? What sort of route should they be taking? Because we're trying to sort of help people put together their own sort of business plan through the sort of questions that we're asking that. So what would you say?
Well, I don't really have a niche, I suppose, because I do lots of other things. But I'll give you an example. I mean, I've got another little startup that my daughters have horses. We've had horses since they were tiny little, and horses are expensive. All the money goes in the front end and the crap comes out the back. And I decided one day down the stables that there's got to be some way I can make money out of this stuff coming out the back of the horse. So I worked out a process. I won't bore you with it, but I worked out a process of treating the horse poo and taking all the germs out of it and taking all the weed seeds out of it and making it a premium product, not something that farmers give away for free. I packaged that, give the company a name, which is called Winnie Pooh, WHINNYPOO, Winnie Pooh. Had the trademark registered, got a website up, saw some little packaging to put the poo in, and made some tags. This was all in the space of 4 weeks. Hired a little stall at the local farmers market, went down there, one little product, one table, one banner behind me, one little message, and it meant within that very short 5 weeks at the most, I was able to come up with an idea and get it to the market. And see if anybody was interested or not. I just picked a price out of thin air because I was trying to find a product that wouldn't cost me anything to make, which is really difficult. But this was it. And that day, I think that first morning we sold 30 bags.
Arthur, the stories that you shared with us are so inspiring. I mean, I think you've just got so much heart and so much. I think you've got so much balls to just take the jump. You've got no fear whatsoever, and I think that's brilliant because our listeners can really, take your story and think, this guy he's come from, he's got so many different types of inspiring moments within his life where I just think your whole journey has been fantastic.
I just like coming up with ideas, see, and coming up with ideas is one thing, but you've got to try and make a product out of it.
Exactly.
And if you can do it really quick without spending any money, then you can. I've come up with ideas where I had another idea a little while ago, and it meant I spent thousands on a programmer. The idea, I hadn't thought it through. The idea was software driven. So the lead time on developing it took me a year and a half. It cost me an awful lot of money. And I realized I was a hostage to the programmer. And in the end, I had to mothball it because it was like he was just costing me a fortune. So if you're coming up with an idea and you're just starting your business for the first time, make it something that you can afford to do. Make it something that doesn't depend on somebody else that you don't know yet to make it work. Try and do as many things as you make sure you can actually sell this product before you start spending thousands of pounds on it.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask another question that me and Brad have spoken about on many occasions. Before this podcast, me, you and Brad, we had a little meeting and you mentioned one story that really stood out to us. Could you tell us that inspiring story? I'm just going to jog your memory. It's the one where you ask random people.
Yeah. Well, that was a good case in point. You've got to do what you need to do to win the client. And at the time, we were trying to win a very big international client. I won't mention who it is.
No.
Big international client. They came across. We got a meeting. They came across from Japan. They arrived at the studio. They came in through the door, and before they arrived, there was only me in the studio at that time. There wasn't a really big company yet. So I had lots of desks in the studio, but I didn't have any employees. So I had a lot of jobs. I had about 14 projects on the go. So I put them all out on the different tables, put magic markers out on the tables. Then I went out into the street and I just hired people off the street. Everybody that I thought was wandering by aimlessly, who weren't on the way to work, I offered them 10 or 20 quid just to come for an hour and sit in my studio. And I just hired all these young people and they just sat at the tables. I told them not to say anything. They just had to sit there, look as if they were busy. And when the client arrived, I just took them around the tables, started talking about the different projects. The client left happy, and then I paid all these people off and they left again.
That is amazing. I love that story. I really do.
I can imagine there was a lot of confused people on that day.
Yeah, absolutely. God knows what they thought when I was offering them 20 quid to come back to my studio. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, this is the thing, though. You're obviously very good at thinking on your feet about things, and sometimes people are a bit scared to maybe jump to doing something that's a bit out of their depth. And this just shows that you were willing to do whatever it took to get the clients in, to get the work, and it was more of a case for you of I can learn it. Just say yes, and let's just do it, rather than going away and trying to think of something else that might work. You just jumped and you just said this will. I'll just make it work. What I've got to lose, and I love that.
Yeah. What have you got to lose? You just got to do it. Otherwise, there was no chance in hell that I was going to win that client. So you just got to. It's funny, they have these little cliches, don't they, where they say you should think outside the box, but in fact there isn't a bloody box at all. You just
got to think quickly.
Just do it. Yeah, just do it. Yeah. That can get you into trouble sometimes, though. You have to be careful.
So we've gone onto your website and we've noticed that you're currently selling a online course. Could you tell us more about the course? I believe it's called Zero to Takeoff.
Yeah, because last year I realised that I've started when I was thinking about sharing my knowledge to small businesses, because I've always worked with big corporates. And if you're a small business and you want to have this sort of level of expertise that I and people like me have, it costs thousands, because those people are still working for big branding agencies, big advertising agencies, and so you just wouldn't be able to have any. You just wouldn't be able to work with them. It's ridiculous. So I decided that I would rather now, at this time in my life, start to pass on to knowledge to young people or anybody at any age who wants to try and start their own business. And then I realized that apart from all this branding knowledge, I've got all this knowledge about how to start a business. From day that idea that you're so excited about and you want to get out there and tell everybody about, to actually getting it through to launch and the post-launch, because on the day you launch it, you realize, it's a bit of an anticlimax because no one's there, no one's bought your product. That journey is full of problems, it's full of hurdles. There's lots of things can go wrong. There's lots of things that will depress you. There's lots of ways you can waste your money and your time. And I've tried to put that together in a 6-module course, so I can take you through each module, through from that blank sheet of paper to how to formulate the idea, how to name it, how to trademark it, how to get that name registered across different social media, how to package it, how to identify your audience, how to identify how your real audience is, how to communicate them, how to follow them, how to create a following, and then how to build a website, all the things that go through to launching your business on day one. So that's what Zero to Takeoff's about. So it's those people who are ready to start their own business now, but don't know how.
Brilliant. Okay, so what was just for our listeners, where can they find this this amazing course?
They can find that by going to arthurluke.co.uk/shop.
Brilliant. And how much does it cost?
It's £60 a month, and it's 6 modules, so it's
brilliant.
6 times 60.
Brilliant.
Awesome. And I think people can also find a one-on-one coaching video 1 hour session with you also on that same page, can't they, Arthur?
Yeah, that's on that same page, and you can see that I put on some bits of feedback from people I've been talking to over the past 2 weeks alone for that 1 hour course. And it's that 1 hour call. I mean, it can make a huge difference because of the people I've already talked to. It's just they're making the same mistakes, but those mistakes, if they don't know they're making those mistakes, so it'll take them years to identify it and put it right. So it's an invaluable hour.
It's honestly amazing what you can take away from an hour's Skype consultation, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, that's brilliant. I mean, thanks for coming on the show, Arthur. You've been absolutely awesome. You've given some absolutely brilliant advice for any startups to take on board, not just those that want to go into the same sort of industry, but for anyone. I know we've certainly took a lot of notes down here. So that's awesome. So just to clear up, where can people find you, Arthur?
They can find me at arthurluke.co.uk, or they can find me on Instagram at luke.online. And Luke is spelled Luke.
Perfect.
Cool. I think that kind of wraps it up, Arthur. Thank you very much.
Been awesome having you, Arthur. Thanks for that. We'll catch up soon.
So then, guys, thank you for listening. What an amazing show it's been. But before we love you and leave you, we just want to say that we are currently giving away 1 year's free subscription to LivePlan, 5 free entrepreneurial books, and a Stage 1 Startup branded t-shirt. Brad, why don't you tell the listeners what they have to do to gain those amazing prizes? For sure. Guys, all you need to do is subscribe to this podcast by clicking the subscribe button, rate and leave a review. It will really help us if you can give us some good feedback or as to what you think of the show and give us a rating, help us boost us up. Then all you need to do, guys, is post a selfie on Instagram or Twitter of you holding a piece of paper which says done, hashtag give me S1S. S1S as in the S, number 1 S. Then make sure that you use that exact hashtag and also tag us in the picture. Our Instagram account is Stage 1 Startup. The same is for Twitter. Put it also in the description of your post. And that's literally it, guys. So it's literally that simple. I reckon my 4-year-old niece could do that. Brad, what do you reckon? I think they probably could. Brilliant. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We can't wait to see you on episode 3.
Thank you for listening to the Stage 1 Startup Podcast. If you're looking to launch your own business idea, visit stage1startup.com for recommended resources and step-by-step guidance to help you succeed. Prepare for takeoff.